Thank you very much, Kuei-Tien. First, I would like to appreciate your wonderful and great efforts to publish this single-authored book to describe the whole picture of Taiwan and including South Korea and Japan, the whole picture of East Asian situation on low-green situation of high carbon society. Most of Japanese environmental sociologists are dealing with local case study at community level. Such a community level case study is very important, but our Japanese environmental sociologists and other Japanese sociologists unfortunately did not succeed to describe such a whole picture of high carbon society. And in case of Japan, unfortunately, political scientists do not attend to climate issues, except some international political science. So, Kuei-Tien's book is very stimulating, especially the word low-green. In Japanese context, for example, nuclear issues, despite of 2011, the Fukushima nuclear accident, now more than 14 years passed. But, in fact, Japanese nuclear policy, how changed? I'm very skeptical. Sufficiently new regulation system started, but in fact, new regulation system is working effectively or not. I'm very skeptical. Recently, a Japanese government want to promote nuclear energy. Why Japanese nuclear policy has not changed in spite of the Fukushima nuclear accident. So, one of the key factor is just some kind of lock-in system. So here, Taiwan, this May, the last nuclear power plant was shut down. Congratulations! Finally, Taiwan succeeded to post-nuclear society. In case of another environmental issues, for example, environmental right. Japan had serious industrial pollution incident, as you know, Minamata disaster. But recently, 80% of all countries has institutionalized environmental right. But unfortunately, in Japan, environmental right is not admitted. So, in case of legal suit, I led local legal suit to stop coal-fired power plant in my area, Sendai. But unfortunately, we defeated. One of the background of such legal decisions in Japan, 4 or 5 anti-coal-fired power plant suits was conflicted, but all of them defeated. One of the reasons is the environmental rights were not admitted. Why environmental rights not admitted? Maybe it's some kind of lock-in effect. One of very special point of Japan, in Japan, is a change of government is very few. As you know, after World War II, in these 80 years, change of government happened only 3 times. 1947 and 1993 and 2009. And all of these change of government were not so succeeded. After then, LDP, authoritarian political system continue to rule Japanese society. So, Chou's scheme decentralized bureaucracy, high carbon industry, and weak civil society on climate issue. This Chou's triangle is also very unfortunately fit to Japanese society, I think. In Japanese context, what are political and social factors to change, to transform this locked-in system? Unfortunately, I cannot expect some factors. Unfortunately, I cannot. But other Japanese participants and other participants can suggest me to some possibilities. Because in case of Japan, younger generation recently politically conservative. Younger generation support nuclear energy, and younger generation support right-wing political party and right-wing politicians. So, yeah, some of young students committed climate change legal suits, and for example, FFF Sendai or FFF Kobe, FFF Kyoto, yeah, such a local young generations movement are a little bit active, but supporter is not so many, very few. In many cases, 10 or 20 supporters. So, what a series of hope to change a green economy with strong civil society and low carbon industry is very urgent and very important issue also in Japan, maybe South Korea, and also something in Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to comment. Is it on? Also, thank you for the very expensive book. I suppose it should be like $200 or something. Before I begin my comments, I have to confess that everyone here, they already know that I'm not environmental sociologist. I'm a hobby farmer and hiker, so that in my lifestyle, I'm heavily damaged by the climate crisis. But on the other hand, sociologically, I have been trying to study East Asian societies and social systems from a comparative perspective. And I have aimed at figuring out how unique East Asian social systems, not just capitalism, socialism kind of systems, but are actually existing and are actually practiced and are actually observed as social systems. And in that respect, books like this is so important to me because it supports my position to pursue this kind of practical social systems. So I thank you, and I also congratulate you for this great work. In that aspect, the book has very important significance. But on the other hand, it is very important as in terms of the methodological cosmopolitanism will be emphasized and try to promote in his late years, final years. And this developmental naturalism differs from developmental environmentalism in that respect. And you have to read the book how it differs, how they differ from each other. But Chou take into account that these environmental issues are now globally framed, and these countries like Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and all countries, in order to continue the developmental participation and also other opportunities, they have to accept the global requirement to save the planet. And then even further, they have tried to reinvent this climate crisis as a kind of developmental opportunity, as said by some scholars writing on developmental environmentalism. So this is a book based on the methodological cosmopolitanism in a very serious respect. And also, I think Prof. Chou is trying to develop some socially robust knowledge. He is so seriously devoted to actually reforming, making some progressive reforms in society and politics and economy, etc. So I think in many aspects he has been successful. And the only, bad news is that he has tried to focus about Korea and Japan maybe. Because Korea needs this kind of comprehensive book on this, environmental development, and Japan also needs. So you should write 2 more books, I suppose, if you can. Maybe other scholars can write, at least read his book, to analyze Korean and Japanese situation. Let me add some, actually reinforce his arguments by saying something about development as modernity, or developmentalism as modernity, and other issues. But let me start with this development as modernity. Development is kind of, the collective concept of framing, the social and economic matters in post-colonial nations. So development is fundamentally a collective affair. You don't call development if a person gets enriched individually. So, but these post-colonial nations have to stand on their own feet materially, and also it will become the basis for a strong army in the end. So development is so important. So this capitalism, because they was kind of subjected to the capitalist exploitation and other cruelties in case Korea and Taiwan is under Japanese rule. They, after liberation, it was almost automatic that they began to think about developing themselves in capitalist manners. And this is in part related with this post-World War II American hegemony, and also the Americans' control of Japan in war, during war, and afterward. So the capitalism was there as in political necessity, but on the other hand, capitalism was framed in a collective manner. It became a national project. And actually, in the 50s, 60s, even American economics was framed in a very much nationalistic way. The theory of economic development, they had even this discipline of development economics, which is not popular anymore. So, so we have the liberal modernity, capitalist modernity, which is very collectivist, state-centered, and etc. So, so everything is developmental. Even our media is developmental. Even our professors are developmental. And the newspaper columns are right in newspapers based upon the kind of developmental relevance of their arguments and their disciplines, and etc. If you adopt my ideas and our national economy can develop, there's this kind of presumption that. So development is not just the economic change, but it's global mobility. Okay, and I think that's why NTU has a great school of national development as in grad school. And, we don't have that, but the whole Seoul National University is the University of National Development. So the environmentalism is of course part of that, but I think if you find all things that are related with this development or developmentally framed, then there's nothing surprising. Historically, development is modernity, but on the other hand, our social sciences are not really properly framed, especially because they are imported from the United States. They don't teach social science that way. So we have to make sense of this reality in our own food. So your book is important in respect. And I think we have only. Finally, maybe I just say a couple. I have written several points, but I will just cover half of them. Developmentalism, environmentalism came after inquiry in West Korea, maybe here too. The post-developmental environmentalism. There used to be a history period in which the strong new social movements was staged, and we thought that we will have some strong civil society promoting this ecological justice in that way. The civil society will be reborn, etc. But somehow this period was rather short, and then it changed into developmental environmentalism stage, and it has something to do with the new liberalization. But on the other hand, in the case of Korea, we even now has something which should be called environmental developmentalism, which is the classic early industrial society situation, including all European countries, etc. We still actually, do a lot of landfills, and then we do, we still try to do. I mean, this is politics actually. This has no, rationality, okay? But this has ironically reflected the democratization, okay? The localization of political constituencies, and etc. The politicians have tried to co-opt these local political constituencies in terms of making local people to benefit from all these construction projects, etc. That they abuse nature, etc. So we still have this kind of problem too. So I just wanted to point that out. So it's a long way. I'm just convinced that this local civil society, this net zero consciousness is unknown to many local communities. It's still very much intellectual issue. Finally, let me emphasize that developmentalism is, in many aspects, is a problem in solving these ecological issues. But on the other hand, sometimes developmentalism enables the progressive reforms in a very interesting way. I mean, Green New Deal, I'm not talking about that, but I'm rather talking about, in Korea, Taiwan has this fertility crisis, right? And then they frame this, they say that if this low fertility continues, then the national population will collapse, and our economy, this strong, this national economy will also collapse. So we have to revive the fertility. Okay, how would you revive your fertility? You have to support women in terms of this child care allowance, and also child a lot of these welfare benefits are actually being offered now. They used to be denied as welfare policy per se. But now all these welfare benefits are actually offered to boost fertility up, because fertility is developmentally so important. Okay, so if you frame something in a developmental manner, then you'll be able to persuade all parties, conservative, progressive, all parties into supporting necessary reforms in many affairs. And I think this environmentalism, I think has at least that effect in some aspects. I mean, but more broadly, China has been very important in that respect. Obviously, it has something to do with this power control of the Communist Party. Let us finish. Congratulations again.
Thank you. We have 8 minutes before the schedule ending at 6. But as Professor Chou, he said that maybe it's time to open up the floor to collect more few questions, and then he will respond in the end. So, okay.
Thank you very much. Two quick questions. First one is following the comment from the last comment from Professor Chang. In mainland China, it's really about developmental environmentalism and net zero also. And because of this, Chinese industry, Chinese manufacturer dominate the market, global market, and it generates employment and make many people raise the income of many, I don't say all, but many people. Then, how do you evaluate this kind of net zeroism in mainland China? This is the first. And then, okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, please. Any more questions, comments? Gregory and the lady.
Thank you very much to everybody that's contributed to the discussion this evening. So my question is just really based on my own ignorance, but the developmental state, I'm not in the field of economics, but in the field of energy transitions. I was introduced by a really talented researcher called Dr. Scott Valentine, that was previously at the School of Public Policy at the National University of Singapore. And he encouraged me to use this lens in my comparison of the strategies used in China and in Japan and in California to promote electric mobility. And I realized how useful it was, because this was very, I think, contrasting to the view from the sustainability transition researchers in Europe that kept promoting this grassroots, bottom-up approach to innovation, where you have all these very eclectic people coming and they sort of come up with this vision and then they pursue that. It's this kind of Dutch model of transitions management. And this just didn't seem to make sense to me in the context of Asia, where there's a lot of sort of innovation occurring at high levels by incumbent companies. And then they're collaborating with the government through this developmental state model. They were sort of enacting sort of change towards this transition. I'm not sort of promoting one approach over the other, but what I realized when I was doing my literature review was that there wasn't so much research recently on the developmental state. It seemed to have gone through like a boom. I think maybe in maybe around the 2000s, explaining this so-called East Asian miracle, these economic tigers. So I'm just wondering, if, as experts, if you could sort of share with me your insights into the direction of this field that's been dealing with the developmental state, especially in the context of the energy transition. Do you find this useful? How's this research going? That's just my own personal interest. Thank you very much.
I don't want to, please.
I think the question is probably related to this, but it's like it's more about the difference between developmental mechanism and environmentalism, which has been talked about in the literature, and I'm not sure, like, I don't have the book, I haven't read the book, but I'm not sure whether it's discussed in your book. Why do you have this new phrase of developmental net zeroism? How is it different from environmentalism? And another question is about the domestic question. They thought you talked about the bureaucratic re-centralization after 2016. I'm not sure whether it's maybe it's discussed in the book, but can you talk more about how do you define this re-centralization and how is it different from the situation before 2016? Thank you.
Thank you. I think our author had, sorry, we are running out of time. Our author, with so many questions, has already explained before. So I will give as much as time we need to respond to all the questions, and after the response, we will close that.
Okay. Many thanks, firstly, to Discussants to give me some inspiration and some idea, okay, to try to actually enlarge this book and to stretch the book work in the future. Firstly, I actually we need more volunteers in Japan, to analyze Japan's net zero transition. We know that because earlier in some after 3.1 accident in Japan, some scholars actually analyzed that there is energy complex between scholars, between media, and between some expert and the nuclear industry. That is nuclear complex or nuclear, we call nuclear village. Okay, it's a small village actually dominated the energy policy in Japan. But for the net zero transition, as Koichi mentioned, the social structure or the policymaking structure or the industrial structure is very similar between Taiwan and Japan. We need to take more volunteers. But in our research, that Japan actually is a very successful reduce the GHG emission. Maybe it's by carbon credit, pass. But we just investing that. But how far is actually the Japan's society go to net zero transition is another problem. So maybe Gregory actually focused on the green political as how the people accept the green political or not. But I remember Gregory that time you actually proposed and analyze that in Japan the mobile industry like to lobby the government to be the hybrid system instead of the electronic system. So this is industrial resistance and what is the social resistance? I think we need more important. And what important is about 2 years ago in one online meeting, Koichi remind our teams that we not only focus on vulnerable group, we have to value the invisible group, not only vulnerable group. Invisible group during the pandemic, during the net zero transition is very important. We have to explore more issues from them. Okay, this is a very important issue from the sociological view. Okay, so invisibility, from the vulnerable. As I addressed how we said about the just transition, we have to explore where is the vulnerable group or where is the vulnerable area, which is initially is the social, economic, and environmental injustice. I think this is very important. And to Professor Kyung-Sup Chang, I think this is very important. In my book, I think this is a standpoint. I try to stretch it from this issue, environmentalism, or developmental net zero to cosmopolitan governments. I think this is a very important issue. For us, actually, our standpoint, you address the complex modernity. Actually, it's one way or the several voluntary analysis of developmentalism that occurred in South Korea. I know mostly you focus on social policy issue in South Korea. And I think that this is also very important standpoint when we stretch from the complex modernity or the individualist society to cosmopolitan way. This is very important. And you address that how can we actually to explore more about developmentalism or developmental modernity. I think this is different alternative modernity in Asia or in East Asia, just as we urged that the second modernity in different countries. That's a plural modernity, not one single linear modernity about it.
I mean, developmental is important because it has been successful.
Yeah.
It's a materiality.
Yeah.
So it's a social structure.
Yeah.
If it has failed in development, then
So I think it's very important. And as I think that mentioned China. I think China in the term we call it developmental environment. It's also Italian development. Okay. To the case study in 2017, that's China government want to switch LNG instead of coal-fired. You know, this is also Italian policy making, and so many people suffer under that. And the critical side still is that China government don't put the national enterprise, big intensive industry, but to get the small SME or small or individuals to switch the coal-fired to LNG, but they actually lack LNG. Okay, this is also Italian process. And I think to is the same. I think that we still need more warrant to analyze, and do more empirical study, to gather the empirical study to actually make an ideal type to analyze what the shape of the transition, in Asia. I think that the comparison with the comparison between China, Singapore, or California, I think this is another. This is actually the different social type. I would like to say that. And to the next question, actually the difference between environmentalism and developmentalism. Actually, I think why I actually proposed that after 2016. I call it decentralized bureaucracy. This concept is actually from South Korea. I don't remember also the Kim, because in South Korea many people call Kims. They call the terms is bureaucratic decentralization. They said I remember the Ningbo government or some presidents from South Korea. They set a committee, to monitor, the national finance management, but that is very, centralized, bureaucratic centralized. So they use the term called bureaucratic decentralization to say the green finance power, OPEC, dominate or the master by the government. And to me, I turn this concept to re-centralize bureaucratic. I would like to say again, because already Taiwan and South Korea already democratization for several years. We had to solidate our democratization, or Ming-Sho, democratization, solidation stage, after several years. But actually, we see in South Korea literature or in Taiwan, when we observe or analyze actually the policy making, as I proposed for some warrant, in our policy making in national transition or climate policy is actually very bureaucratic elite decision making. So this is the way. So we said already. Actually, in Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan, the three countries already transplanted the deliberative democracy since 2000. In Japan, the first so-called consensus conference about GMO held in 1998. In South Korea, it's about in 2000. Taiwan is later 2003 about that. So the three countries already transparent the concept of deliberative democracy. To urge people or the policymaking to open the forum to the public deliberation, but when it actually can get some support. So, but most of the citizen or the consent conference is very real button up. Okay, very real button up. So this is another way. So we transfer this concept into our region, but the policymaking can still actually. I would, from my own observer, yeah, from is very dominated by the political elite. Okay, so if you want to analyze how many is our minister from the university, from the expert, that their own elite expert. Let's say we know that we don't mention too much. Okay, just is a consultation, not real deliberation. So this is another thing. So I just follow this concept, try to analyze about this state of the national transition.
Okay, so we are 2 minutes behind schedule, but we are about to conclude the book panel. So please join me in thanking presenter, two discussants, and all participants here. Thank you so much.